Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here for another installment of the Advocate Spotlight. I'm Elise Cranston, the Director of Advocacy at Child Care Aware of America, and I am so pleased to be joined by my partner in advocacy, Robin Phillips. Robin, thank you so much for being here with us today and agreeing to share a little bit of your expertise and advocacy insight. Robin is the CEO of Child Care Aware of Missouri, and she has been doing a lot of great work overall, but specifically recently has really been seeing some results in her work with the business community. And so, Robin, I would love to start our conversation by just asking you if you can tell us a bit about your role and your advocacy context.
Sure. And first and foremost, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you and hopefully help others learn from things I've done or continue to add value to different advocacy conversations. So again, thank you. So my career in child care resource and referral actually started in North Carolina in 2000 when Smart Start had just launched in that state. Or had been around for a couple years anyway. And anyway, I'm from Missouri, and so I came back to St. Louis in 2004 and have actually held a number of roles with Child Care Aware of Missouri since 2004 and have been the CEO since 2017. And reflecting back on my advocacy, I guess, career at this point, although I feel like I'm learning stuff every single day still, started in about 2008, 2009, when actually Child Care Aware of America connected us to a parent whose infant had died in unlicensed care. And fast forward a little bit from that story by a few months, and another one got connected to us. And as I was getting to know these families and understanding the stories on two very different situations of what happened, but unfortunately both infants were deceased, and I said to myself in my community engagement role at the time, this is a place for our organization to step into some sort of advocacy role, educating legislators and others on high quality and safe child care. And really no one else in the organization at that point in time was doing that. And so I just said to myself, okay, I kept pushing back like so many people do, and was like, nope, I can't do it. All the self-talk. Nope, that's too much. It's too much. I'm never going to learn it all. And made a decision one day to just jump in and start spoon feeding myself to really understand what I needed to do. And most importantly, how I could help these families or guide them or connect them to others, because it was heartbreaking. And I didn't realize that was going to be a part of my career in resource and referral. But as unfortunate as those circumstances were and are, I'm fortunate that I was exposed to that experience because it really put me in a stretch of learning and helped evolve to the role that I'm in today, which involves a lot broader advocacy. I've testified in front of state, House, and Senate committees. Most recently testified for almost 2 hours actually in front of St. Louis County Council for local ARPA funding. I would much rather testify in front of a House committee than to do that again. But and I've participated in Days on the Hill when symposium used to be the way it was pre-COVID. So lots of different experiences so that I can learn. Just because I have this title doesn't mean I know it all or have all the answers, because I don't. So I surround myself with people who are smarter than me to learn from and understand and ask questions. So
I love that learner mindset, and thank you for sharing that. And I think people can often be intimidated, and it means so much hearing from a senior leader like yourself about that learning is a process, and you just got to get started in it.
Correct. Yes.
You mentioned learning from others, and I know you do a lot of coalition building, and something I wanted to talk a little bit more about today was your work with your local business community. I know you've been doing that a lot, and I would love if you could share just a brief description of some of the activities that you've been engaging in recently and why partnering with that specific group of people was a priority or part of your advocacy work.
Sure. So, I think this goes back to about 10 years ago when, and maybe others listening to this video can get this and wholeheartedly agree. Like most of us in this field that have been in a while know, we've known all along childcare and economic impact and recovery go together. Like they just do. We all know this. But your non-traditional thinkers, such as your business leaders, or at the time, chambers of commerce or community planners or CEOs or HR people, they weren't able to connect all those dots because they don't work in our industry and understand all the facets of it. They're not over there reading about the brain research and the impact in the first 2,000 days on a child. So I've always had this goal of getting in front of economic development folks who I'm defining as my business community contacts right now. And thankfully, and ironically, and unplanned, so it's completely organic, one of the partners we contract with to be an expanded outreach partner for us also serves as the secretary of the statewide Missouri Economic Development Council and invited me to come in and present because she knew I had been doing webinars called Child Care Keeps Missouri Working, and really trying to educate people and inform them of, hey, like here's some research, and we pulled some figures from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce report that had some specific Missouri items in it, and really to try to educate people in like a 101 version. And then we've also created a 201 version to help these folks as employers to understand what are some strategies that may work in your community. But most importantly, that your community needs to come together and have a community-based focus, because the state isn't going to solve it and the feds aren't going to solve it. From there, it also put me just in touch with other people and overlapped into the Society for Human Resource Management, also known as SHRM conference. Actually, last week, we were an exhibitor, and of about probably 50 or so booths, we were like the hot topic. Like we had a lot of traffic. So it was great. So a lot of leads, a lot of connections to HR folks, but it also allowed me an opportunity to co-present with our state chamber on this topic of childcare and how it's impacting employers and what are some strategies employers can do to support their employees. And so I ended up co-presenting. And at the end of that conversation in my segment, I'm always somebody who's like, okay, what's like the next thing you can do? So trying to help people understand, listen, so you might be the HR person and you're focused right now on a solution, but you might also be sitting at other tables where you have spheres of influence that bring in economic development or community leaders or chamber. Like your communities have to be having these conversations. We have to build momentum because this is a long game. It's not an overnight fix. If it was, we would have fixed it a long time ago. And in that conversation, I mentioned that I had reached out to an economic developer in a community nearby, a rural community nearby St. Louis, and had reached out to ask them how they were addressing childcare needs. His solution was talking to the schools, which we all know public schools don't care and love and educate infants and toddlers or provide that wraparound care for before and after schoolers. And so I provided him some data on the supply of childcare and where it was in his county so that he could see like capacity and how really they are a desert when you start doing all the math and looking at the census data. And anyways, I'm saying this at the end of this conversation, I said, this economic development person never said a name, never said anything negative. You never know who's in the room. You never know who's listening. So always want to keep it positive.
Of course.
And I said, this person had not called me back. I guess he lost interest or they've changed direction, so on and so forth. Session ends. The first person to come up to me after that session was the mayor of that community.
Wow.
And she said, we kind of revisited a little bit and I got a little more specific and told her who I spoke to. And she's like, I'll sit down with you and I'll bring the company to the table as well. And I'm like, perfect. So we now have a meeting in the next couple of weeks. That also includes her president of the Board of Aldermen. My point in saying all that is advocacy, we know, is education, but it's a form of sales. It really is. It's a form of sales and planting seeds and just dropping things here and there because you never know what's going to come from it. And that particular example was, you never know who's in the room. And sometimes I feel like somebody else is looking out for me and aligning certain things, and it just all came together. So it was a nice, there's a reward in that for me that feels like a success. I don't, funding is nice, but that's not really what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to impact people's thinking and add influence so that they are then carrying the conversations and advocating in their own communities or on a state and federal level from a totally different perspective than from those of us in the choir.
Absolutely. That's an incredible example, and a couple of different examples. Yeah. I feel like that you just went over there, and I appreciate you sharing sort of why this work is important, why engaging with employers and your business community and the economic developers in your area is important. You're right. It's no secret to all of us that this is absolutely, that childcare is absolutely a part of the economy and a critical part of the economy. But right. It seems like other people are sort of getting hip to that notion now. And that makes these conversations and relationships that you're talking about so important and so critical to our advocacy work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest lesson for me, we all do the self-talk, right? So the self-talk for me, because I can get incredibly passionate to a point where I get my serious face on. And I have to remember that I have to meet people where they're at, even my own staff on different things they're growing on. I have to meet people where they're at and then slowly bring them along. So sometimes what feels like so redundant and rudimentary is what has to be done. And so you have to keep finding that spark and that energy so people feel your passion for it and then are motivated or called to some sort of action in their community, or that just in time you're building that relationship and utilizing one another as a resource. So
yeah. Oh, I love that attitude about being determined and being persistent and sticking with it. I know that the examples that you just shared, I would consider those results. Are there other results that you're seeing? Are there results that you're hoping to see from this work?
I think, and not to get off on another topic, but during some of these conversations, these employers and HR folks, the community folks, they're desperate for something. They want to fix it right now, and helping them understand that really the compensation is the biggest issue. And you could have all the other things in place, but it doesn't matter if you don't have people there and educators. And so some of the results I'm looking for are to see if I can get a county or two in our state to bite on something like a salary supplement program and utilizing their own local ARPA money or community block grant money or something to show them it's not a panacea, but it's a strategy. And we've got to find something, in my opinion, to bridge the gap over the next 2 or 3 years, or we're not going to have much of a childcare workforce to talk about. So that's really the tangible and intangible results I'm looking for. And really the wins for me, the money is nice, but the wins for me is I don't want one more community to have a headline in the newspaper that a baby or child was abused, neglected, or died. Like, that's really what it's about for me. And so I'm going to keep at it. Persistence is my middle name, and I don't have a problem making people feel uncomfortable, because it's the only way individuals, communities, organizations grow. It's the only way. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And for someone who's looking to get into advocacy and learning, you have to accept and embrace the fact you're going to be uncomfortable, but it's the only way you're going to get to the next level.
Well, and that transition was perfect. My last question for you is, what advice would you give to others who are interested in reaching out to their local business community or employers in their area to talk about childcare?
Yeah, certainly I think it's knocking on those doors you don't typically knock on. And, it's hard to do that kind of stuff when we're still kind of in this COVID zone. And so, showing up face to face isn't always an ample opportunity, but, I'm a big proponent of tapping into spheres of influence. So if a CCR&R network entity or organization is utilizing other partners or has member R&R agencies or however that's facilitated, is tapping into their spheres of influence and seeing what conversations they're at, or can that organization's board member introduce them to someone, because it is all about relationships. Cold calling is, it's doable, but it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort. And a lot of times you get better results when you have a warm handoff somewhere. So I think it's looking for that. I think it's, engaging in Child Care Aware of America's opportunities or the action alerts and reading and understanding and not being afraid to ask questions. Like, there's no stupid question. If you don't know, then you just ask and you seek clarification and you seek understanding. And someone said to me, and this is so simple, but someone said this to me a long time ago, and it just stuck, was legislators put on their pants the same way I do. I might vote you in. So guess what? You kind of work for me. So I'm going to share with you how I feel about things and educate you on a particular angle or perspective. And sometimes it might need to go further than that. Most of us, a lot of folks with the funding that we have can't lobby, but I do have different funding available for me that allows me to lobby. I report it. I never use state money for that. I never use federal money for that. But sometimes it does boil down to needing a person in your organization who can make the asks and not just do the education. But it's overcoming the fear and the self-talk in our own heads that talk yourself out of learning something new. But quite honestly, it's been very rewarding. I've helped 2 laws get passed in Missouri. Were they perfectly written? No. But the fact that they're in place and we haven't had as many, reported situations like before, is a win. And so to be able to reflect back and see my involvement on that, I know I'm making a difference for children, and one day I'll have grandchildren, and that's really why I keep doing this work.
Absolutely. Well, that was so inspirational. Thank you for sharing that and encouraging all of us to stick with it and get involved.
Right.
I so appreciate that. I know that you shared a couple of different highlights. I wanted to have a quick slide here at the end about a couple of the things that you mentioned about the importance of relationship and influencing others and bringing them over to your side and agreeing that this is important. You talked so much about getting out there and sticking with it and being persistent and advocating for yourself and just getting into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all going to be told no. I don't like to be told no. But a coach one time said to me, the more no's you get, the closer to a yes you get. And so you have to have thick skin in policy work. You're going to get told no. You're going to get asked a lot of questions that you're like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't even have anything to do with this. And so you just roll with it. You remain polished and professional, and then you kind of swoop back in and you stay with your persistent message. So, but yeah, so it's that influence, and sometimes it can be exhausting work, but it builds over time and will eventually, build into someone's confidence too.
Absolutely. And that gets to this last point about we're being on a mission to make a change in this system, and that we can't give up, and we have to stick with this. And it's okay if you don't know everything. It's okay if you fail. You're failing forward because you're still learning.
That's correct.
I so appreciate all of that insight and expertise that you just shared with our advocacy community. And also, I'm going to say inspiration. I feel encouraged and reinvigorated. So thank you so much for the conversation today. I do want to just say thank you again to being here. We're so grateful to have you as a resource and as a partner in this work. So thank you.
It's my privilege to be here. I've learned a lot from so many people at Child Care Aware of America, and I'm grateful for that. And again, it's all about kind of, building it forward and building into others. So.
Oh, I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who is listening and who is interested in increasing their advocacy or getting involved. We appreciate you being part of our community. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.